Hello, 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 brothers and sisters. How's it going? Hope you're having a splendid day or evening, depending on where you're at. So, how to take your Bible reading to the next level. The topic of today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be explaining a lot of Bible terms and idioms. A lot of them might seem confusing to a lot of us brothers and sisters, myself included. A lot of the terms and words I'll be explaining here in this video are either obscure English terms or they're a little bit archaic, old English terms. And a lot of the idioms in the Bible, there might be a lot of idioms in the Bible you might be unaware of, which I'll be explaining in this video as well. The first part of the video where I explain these terms and these idioms, it's mostly for beginners or people who've read the Bible in bits and pieces, not in its entirety, or if you only read it once. So this part of the video is mostly for you guys. And then the latter part of the video, it's going to be mostly geared towards the Bible veterans who've read the Bible at least 3 or 4 times, seasoned veterans of the Bible. So I have 2 tips for this group of people that I think they'll find very useful to take their Bible reading to the next level, brothers and sisters. So let's get right into it, shall we? First, I'm going to start with a list of miscellaneous Bible terms, as you see here. Okay, so the first term, leaven. Leaven is a term we find very often in the Old Testament. Unleavened bread, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, for example. Leaven is basically a substance like a yeast that makes dough rise. Barley is, as you see here, it's a grain similar to wheat, not exactly the same. It has a bit more fiber. So this was a common Old Testament grain that people would barter with. Moving on, a breastplate is like a sacred breastplate that the high priests in ancient Israel used to wear, like the sons of Aaron and Aaron himself, the Levites, the priests of the tent of meeting, the Ark of the Covenant, the priests that would do the liturgy and all the animal sacrifices. When the Israelites were wandering in the wilderness, the priests would wear what we call an ephod. An ephod was a type of apron worn by these priests, which is mostly purple and blue colors, various fabrics. And a breastplate was fastened to this ephod, and there were like 12 jewels on them, symbolizing the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, a quarry is like a large deep pit, a place where stones are extracted. For example, there are quarries on the mountain next to my village. Machines go and extract stones, and they cut these stones in blocks. And this is how the pyramids of Egypt were constructed. Okay, a pomegranate is a fruit. I'm pretty sure most of you know what a pomegranate is. If you've never eaten a pomegranate before, there's little bits and pieces of it. A garrison is a group of soldiers stationed in a town or fortress. A snuffer is like a small metal cone used for extinguishing candles, as you see here. A chariot is a 2-wheeled vehicle dragged by horses. A basin is a bowl where you wash your hands. Lattice work. Lattice work is, as you see here, interlacing strips of wood or metal, forming a lattice. Squares or diamond-shaped gaps in between. Incense is like a gum residue that is burned for a pleasing aroma. Censer is a container in which incense is burned, as you see here. The nave of a church is the central part of a church, as you see here. The vestibule is like a lobby-like room. As you enter into the church, there's this lobby-like room, which is a small room. A cherubim is a type of angelic being, type of angel. They're typically the ones who attend to God's throne. They're near God's throne. They're sort of like God's secret service. A quail is an ancient bird. I'm not sure if they're still around, as you see here. A buckler is a small round shield, typically worn on the forearm. Calvary, Golgotha, the place of the skull outside of Jerusalem where Jesus was crucified. Abba is like an Aramaic term, means father. Three-pronged fork is a many-pronged fork used in sacrificial offerings, typically used in animal sacrifices, as we see in the Old Testament, the burnt offerings and whatnot. This is a tool they use to handle those offerings instead of hands. A wafer is a thin unleavened cake made with flour, oil, honey, and they distribute those in church services, in liturgies. Sackcloth is a very coarse fabric, typically worn when someone is mourning somebody. Like when somebody dies, they wear sackcloth as a sign of mourning. Maranatha is another Aramaic term, meaning, O Lord, come quickly. Jebus is the old term for Jerusalem. This is when the Jebusites, Canaanite tribe, were occupying Jerusalem before the Israelites came. Okay, that's pretty much it for the miscellaneous terms, which is by no means an exhaustive list. Moving on to the physical weights and measurements. They are, as you see here, in categories of volumes, lengths, physical money. Most Bibles give these in alphabetical order, at least mine does, but I don't think that's the best way to present them. I give these measures in increasing order of magnitude. The most common units from the above list is, which you'll encounter in the Bible, are the bath, the ephah, the kor, the cubit, which is roughly half a meter, the shekel. The talent and the denarius are the most common units you'll see in the Bible. I know these are large gaps in payment periods. I don't know if they actually paid workers in these frequencies, but there you have it. And in most Bible translations, as far as I know, preserve the biblical measurements, except translations like the NLT. Like in this verse, for example, it's using gallons instead of kors, baths, which is fine, of course, whatever floats your boat. But me personally, I prefer the biblical units. It puts me in the mood and atmosphere of that time period, my friends. Okay, so moving on to King James Version specific terms, or Old English terms, whatever you want to call them. And they are, as you see here. I touched upon these briefly in my video about Bible versions. Though is you in singular subject, thee is you, singular object, thy, your. The first letter of the next word is a consonant. Thine is your. The next word starts with a vowel. Ye is you, plural version of you. Hearken means listen, albeit, however. At unawares, suddenly, by surprise. Art, are. Nigh, near. Holpen, helped. Past tense. Husbandman, farmer. Wherefore, for what reason. Beseech, implore, beg. Bondman means slave. Ere means before. Moving on to the animals now of the Old Testament. The animals which were mostly sacrificed for burnt and peace offerings. The lamb is a young sheep, calf is a young cow, ox is or bullock, a male cow or male cattle, castrated. I think the bull is the uncastrated version. A heifer is a cow that hasn't given birth yet, and a ram is a male sheep. I mean, some of you might think this list is overkill, but you'd be surprised how many people don't know what a lamb is, for example, or a calf. I mean, I myself confused these two animals together, you know. There was a point where I thought a lamb was a young cow instead of a sheep. So don't be surprised. A lot of people don't know these. I mean, it's good to know what animals were sacrificed in the Old Testament. Okay, moving on now to idioms. Here's a brief list of idioms. By no means it's not exhaustive, but I think personally they're the most significant ones. There are a lot more idioms. The first one, when you see someone's nakedness, it means committing adultery with their spouse. When you see this term in the Bible, you're not supposed to take this literally. This is a euphemism. Give up the ghost, slept with his fathers. Bite the dust means died, basically. Cast pearls to swine. Offer spiritual truths to people who don't appreciate, understand them. Shake the dust off your feet, similar as above. Washing your hands of somebody, not somebody rejecting the gospel, for example. So you wash your hands of them and you move on. You keep it pushing, as they say. Unequally yoked, being in a close relationship with someone with different core beliefs and or values. Twinkling of an eye, that means happens quickly and suddenly, in the blink of an eye, basically. Self-explanatory. Apple of one's eye, something valuable to someone. Eye for an eye means revenge, basically. You dish out the same level of punishment that someone else dished out to somebody else. Doubting Thomas is a person that is always suspicious, skeptical. Okay, that's pretty much it for the Bible terms, the words, and the idioms. Now let's go to part 2 of the video. I'll be giving 3 tips. The first tip is mostly for beginners who read only bits and pieces of the Bible or nothing at all. My recommendation to you is don't start from the book of Genesis. Don't start reading the Bible from there. Start reading the New Testament first. Because A, it's more beginner friendly, and B, it contains the core teaching of the Bible, which is Jesus died for our sins, and for us to put all our faith in Him. So we're under the law of Jesus Christ, under His covenant. We're not under the law anymore. So you should start from the New Testament first. And then when you're done with the book of Revelation, then you go to the Old Testament and read that from Genesis. You don't even have to start from Genesis. I think a beginner-friendly book of the Old Testament is the book of Proverbs. You should probably start from there. And then you go to the Genesis, to the Torah. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament, which Moses wrote. So start from the New Testament and then go to the Old Testament. And if you want to start the Old Testament from the book of Proverbs, and start from that one. It's very, very practical, wisdom-filled book that is very beginner-friendly, brothers and sisters. Tip number 2 and 3. Tips number 2 and 3 are more geared toward the Bible veterans who've read the Bible multiple times. If you're a beginner, you don't have to apply these. Tip number 2 is mostly applies to reading genealogies. There are chapters in the Old Testament, for example, where they're just filled with names and genealogies of descendants of the tribe of Israel, for example. The descendants of Abraham, in other words. And a tip I have for you in order to read these chapters more smoothly is to make genealogical trees and charts. Because I think these parts of the Bible, they're not meant to be read like a novel or like the rest of the Bible. Because not all the names are in order, But if you make a tree, a genealogy tree, you can very quickly figure out who's a descendant of who came from which lineage, who's the son of who. You'll be able to very quickly discern this with a quick glance, You can recruit your spatial intelligence to make heads or tails of all the list of names in those chapters, and you'll be able to better visualize who's the son of who's the daughter of who. You'll be able to visualize it better, and you'll be able to memorize it better or remember it better. You don't have to, of course, you don't have to memorize all the names, just some more important ones, especially the genealogy of David in particular. So when you're in these chapters, just make genealogical trees. You only have to make them once. Instead of reading these chapters over and over again like a novel, you just consult the tree and you'll be able to figure out quickly who comes from who, brothers and sisters. Tip number 3 now. Tip number 3. There's some chapters in the Bible especially in the Old Testament, you'll come across names of towns where you don't know this town, you don't know the name of the town, you're not familiar with it. And then you go to a map you might have a book of maps of Israel, for example, and you go there to consult the map, and for some reason the map doesn't have the town that's mentioned in that verse. And even if you go to Google, you might have trouble finding it there as well. I mean, it's very frustrating when you're reading a chapter and you have to interrupt your reading and to go hunt for towns. And my recommendation for you is take a map that you're fond of already, that has most of the towns and the cities of ancient Israel, and just make additions to that map using like a video editor or a photo editor. I myself, I'll use Vegas, for example, Vegas Pro. You might use some other video editor. Use whatever editor floats your boat, it doesn't matter. Or it doesn't even have to be a video editor. It can be something like Photoshop. Take your favorite map and make additions to it. Find the town that you're looking for in another map on Google, for example, and add it manually to your favorite map. Go to the editor and add it manual. And that way you don't have to go looking for it over and over again each time you come across the same verse. Like the fifth, you don't have to do things over and over again. Like if you read the Bible 5 times and you come across a verse that talks about, and for me, for example, this town, Kiryas Jearim, has driven me nuts. Each time I find it mentioned in the Old Testament, I go hunting for it on my favorite map, and I can't find it. I have to Google it to search for it. And I find it on some obscure map, and I forget about it. And then the next time I encounter this verse, the same verse, the next time I read the Bible, I have to go looking for it again because I've forgotten my first search, Just add it once to your favorite map and be done with it. So you don't have to go searching anymore. The searching stops. You only have to do this once for each town you encounter in the Old Testament. And at some point you make all the additions necessary. And in subsequent readings, you don't have to go searching anymore. All the towns you have at your fingertip on one map, on your favorite map. Because truth be told, not all the maps have all the towns mentioned in the Bible, brothers and sisters. So you have to make additions. You have to customize, in other words, the maps you consult when you're reading the Bible. So you don't have to go searching over and over again for the same towns and places. And in this manner, you slowly memorize the towns, the regions, Moab, Edom, Syria. You know where Syria is. You know where Tyre is. You know where Babylon is. Slowly, as you read the Bible more and more times. I mean, these two tips, tips number 2 and 3. I mean, all this legwork isn't necessary if you've never read the Bible. But if you're a veteran of the Bible, and it becomes increasingly necessary to do some legwork in order to increase your understanding of the Bible, take it to the next level, I mean, if we're going to read the Bible over and over again until we die, then we might as well increase our understanding of it each time we read it. So this is how you take your Bible understanding to the next level, brothers and sisters, by doing some legwork. And you only do it once, my friends. So that's pretty much it. I hope this video was a blessing to you. I hope most of you got something out of it. I think there's a little bit of everything for each level of experience in this video. Brothers and sisters, smash those buttons like they owe you money. Comment down below if you think I overlooked a term that you might think is significant. By all means, this wasn't an exhaustive list of obscure words in the Bible, but I did my best. I'm going to make more videos on this topic. Shoot a video suggestion my way. If you want me to lift up a prayer for you, say so in the comments, and also lift up a prayer for me too. Should all be praying for each other these dire times. Brothers and sisters, that's pretty much it, and I'll see you brothers and sisters in the next video. Bye-bye.